Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby. Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to the MC Variety Hour. This is Crawford. Miles with her train whistle. Whoop, whoop. And we also have an amazing guest, Miles.
Hey.
What do we have today?
We've got the ABCDBagz. I don't want to give out any first names if it's not appropriate, so I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Oh, we're going to let him decide who he's going to be.
Yeah,
okay.
You do you.
You do you.
Well,
Talk yourself up.
This is Bradley D from the ABCDBagz, so you got half of the ABCDBagz with you. Of course, the other half is Tony B, and he is in Chicago, but he's not with us right now. He's actually practicing for his play that he's in Chicago. He's doing a Klingon Christmas Carol.
You're so excited. What part is he playing?
He's playing Scrooge.
I have always wanted to learn Klingon.
Yeah, he taught me a little bit, but I can't remember a damn thing.
That's all you got to know.
How dare you say that to me?
You know, all I asked you was how to get to the bus station.
Turn left. Always turn left.
Always go left.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So why don't you, for those of you, for our listeners, they may not know, like, okay, so I love this show is probably one of the better podcasts that is original. I know that I talk about, my love affair of all podcasts, but when it comes down to original podcasts, something that nobody else is doing, I think the ABCDBagz definitely has that in their pocket. If you haven't listened to them, I know that I have them on Podbean, so you should definitely follow them on Podbean. Download their episodes. They're fucking weird and great, and it's just, how the hell did you come up with this idea? How did you come up with the name?
Yeah,
it's just naturally amazing.
It's interesting because it is. God, it's so hard to describe our show. You can't really just pigeonhole it as one thing. We are a show that takes the letter of the alphabet, any letter, random letter, and we build the show around that. We've done multiple shows we try to be different in every show that we do. Like in season 1, E was for elevator. We did the whole podcast in an elevator. Tony was in an elevator in Chicago. I was in an elevator here in Omaha, and we just would interview people that would come on the elevator. Now, the interviews lasted like 2 seconds because we were like, okay, bye. But we did that, and we just thought it was great. We just kind of came up with this idea. Well, Tony and I met in college, and we kind of did pranks on people. Like one time we found we did like plays together, and he found like blue blocker. Remember those blue blocker sunglasses that wrapped around your eyes? Do you know what I'm talking about?
They look like what Scott wears in X-Men.
Yeah, kind of like that. And yeah. Tony and I found some in the prop room, and I go, oh my God, put them on and pretend like you had eye surgery and that you're blind, and I'll guide you around campus. Right?
Right.
And I would go, turn you 2 o'clock. And he'd turn. I go, no, AM, you idiot. And he'd turn the other way, which makes no sense at all. At all. But we would do that, and people would be like, oh my God, are you okay? And we would just prank people like that. We would go to the library and ask people where the library was. That's how just ridiculous we were.
That sounds awesome.
Tony was a guest on the other podcast that I do with my husband called The Deuce, where we basically just talk about the second installment of movies. And he did a bunch of our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episodes. And after that, I was like, Tony, we have to do a podcast together. So Tony and I came. Actually, a girl I used to work with said, you should do the alphabet and do like stuff based on the alphabet. I'm like, well, that sounds weird. So we decided to just like have the alphabet and do our shows like tied to that letter. Kind of like you get from like a children's like television show, like Sesame Street.
No, I remember the letter people.
Yeah,
they
the
were
letter
pretty
people.
prominent in kindergarten.
Mr. T, dude.
Yeah.
He was a big old T. I love that. Do you remember Mr. Goodbody?
Yes, Mr. Goodbody. Mr.
I
Slim
have dreams
Goodbody
about that shit.
freaked me out. Like, no one should have that.
Yes! Nobody should have that on the outside of their body. There's a reason that's on the inside with skin covering it. That was traumatic when they rolled that TV in with the VCR and they'd be like, we're going to watch TV today, kids. It was Mr. Goodbody.
It was Mr. Goodbody. God, that thing freaked me out. God, and his, like, Jerry curl hair.
Oh, my God. You know what? Because you remember things the other way, and just a few months ago, I was like, what was that guy? I had to look him up because I couldn't remember. I just remembered his show and stuff, and I actually had to, like, Google around trying to find him.
Yeah.
Because my boyfriend didn't believe me. He was like, I never watched that show, and he's 4 years older than me, so I was like, okay, maybe he just missed that. Like, you remember Fraggle Rock, though, I bet. You know?
No.
And sure enough, I found it, and there were all kinds of pictures, and I was like, it is as horrific as I remember it.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. But we wanted to do a parody of kind of like that. But like the first season, we wanted it to be kind of like have this punk attitude. Basically, Tony and I wanted to create a podcast that we would listen to. We realized that there's a lot of like movie podcasts. Hey, I do one, and like stuff like that. Like horror podcasts. There's a lot of like these similar podcasts.
True crime, because like there's like a million
crime,
true crimes.
There's a million true crime ones, and we're like
a billion of them.
we didn't want to do something like that. We wanted to do something where we would listen to it, and we didn't care if anyone else listened to it. In fact, a lot of times the episodes we kind of try to figure out how people would not listen to it, and that's how we come up with the idea. Like, V was for vacuum. We vacuumed for 15 minutes. That was the show.
That's amazing. I love it.
Like, no one should listen to it. And we were like, how are people listening to this?
Me, loved fucking weirdness, because there was at that time when, I mean, obviously, I think I found you guys just once Crawford and I got started, and it really was just find, like, you know, fucking hashtag podcast, you know, and just try to find it and find and connect and follow, you know. And I don't know if it was through the No Phony Network exactly. I feel like I was listening to you guys prior.
I feel like that too. I feel like you like maybe I saw you guys before the No Phony.
Yeah, and I feel like I mean I'm pretty positive I remember some of those like fucking weird, like the vacuum one you're talking about. I totally fucking remember that, you know, and the paper one.
Oh, the paper
like,
one.
I mean,
it's crazy. We're just ripping paper for 10 minutes. Like, no one should no.
No one should, but me, I'm like, heart this shit. This is so
Yes.
fucking weird. Like, I don't even know why. I can't help it, but like, I can't stop listening.
Yeah, and that's we're aiming for that. We're aiming for people that are like, fuck, I don't know why I'm listening to this, but I am. That's our audience. When someone says,
And then your season 2 was about Dr. Zoot, right? Was that his name?
yeah. So what happened was we decided that we wanted to, like, for season 2, we like, as far as our comedy is concerned, which is very absurd. We decided that we always want to kind of try to make our comedy and try to like outdo ourselves each time and kind of switch it up. So season 2, we decided that we were going to have this through story. So at the end of season 1, this creature, Lord Zoot, kidnaps us, and we're and he captures us and brings us to the planet of the roller skating bees, and he makes us do our show all over again because he eats the alphabet. So basically, we just have to, because we're like, how are we going to do this again for season 2? Because we wanted to continue to do it, but we didn't want to do the same thing we did in season 1. And so Lord Zoot, who is famously played by my husband, he actually did the voice of Lord Zoot, and does all of our editing for the episode. So we would have where Lord Zoot at the end of the episode would eat the letter. So we would like perform stunts or do weird things, and he would eat the letter. So that's how that happened.
And now we are on to season 3, which
season
has
3.
a Doctor Who vibe to it.
Yeah, it's kind of a Doctor Who vibe, kind of quantum leap, where we're actually leaping into different types of podcasts.
That's awesome.
So, like, we just recently did a podcast that's, kind of like a Prairie Home Companion show. So we did that. We leaped into a show hosted by a nun called Breaking the Habit with Sister George. And we are guests on her show. So that's awesome.
Sister George.
And the way we come up with these ideas is like every episode. I mean, you can vouch for me. Like every episode is different. You're like,
Yeah.
you're never going to be bored by it. Well, you might be because you're like, what's going on? But you're never going to be bored. I don't think about like originality of it because it's always going to be something different. So if you don't like something, you just
definitely agree to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important in the podcast world. I
think
really
so,
do.
too. I really
Like,
do,
I
too.
think that, like you said, there's so many podcasts. Like you do a movie podcast, and I love all the movie podcasts out there. By the way, guys, I'm not dissing on any of you guys. I love all the ones that I already listened to. But even when Crawford and I were trying to come up with our show, we knew we weren't quite. We're original in the sense of how Crawford and I we wing every show. Like, hey, so what do we could talk about? Fuck, we don't know. We tried.
It's better if we just kind of have an idea and go with it.
We tried the scripted part. I tried to write them all out. Personally, I think that we sound so
Robotic.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. 99% of our show is improv.
Yep. That's us. We're like, we'll just edit that out, and then we don't.
There was a part at the end of season 2, the season finale of season 2, which by the way is my favorite episode, where Dr. Guess Who, a Doctor Who kind of character, Dr. Guess Who, because we don't want to get sued. Anyway,
Right.
Dr. Guess Who comes in and he saves us from the planet. And that's actually played by Alex Merrick from Release the Clowns. So we sent him a script so he could record his parts, and then we just recorded around it. So we did that.
Dude, I love Alex from Release the Clowns.
Alex is
I love
amazing.
Release the Clowns in general because, again, that's another one from, now that one's across the pond to the UK, but Release the Clowns is fucking, dude, I found them prior to finding, that's why I say I think I really did find you guys prior to No Phony, because I know for sure I had found Release the Clowns as a Podbean.
Yeah.
It was a requested app, or requested pod, like, you should listen to this. And I'm like, okay. And,
Okay.
I think I was like, look at this clown icon. Sure, I'll click on that. And it was like after that, I was like, what is this?
What is this? And I remember giving it to my husband and saying, you have to listen to this podcast. It's so fucking weird.
Oh, it's so
it
great.
reminded me, it's so great because it reminds me of, Monty Python for podcast. Yeah. It's like a 15-minute Monty Python, like little skits, and it's fucking awesome. I'm like, God,
It's amazing. Actually, and I sent him a couple other doctors. So we're gonna have more Dr. Guess Who's on this season, but they're all gonna be played by someone else. So he's gonna have some other people from history record a couple of Dr. Guess Who's. So look forward to that. But we had like about halfway through season 1, we pretty much had up to season 4 mapped out of what we were going to kind of do, and it's kind of changed a little bit. But for the most part, what happens is how we get together with our ideas is that we, at least what I do is I write the whole alphabet out, and then Tony does too. And then we just try to think of like what we would do for that episode. And then we come together before the season, and then we throw out ideas. And sometimes they're like the stupidest ideas. And the more insane, the better. And sometimes we just forget about them, and then we just bring them back. I remembered there was something we wanted to do in season 1 that we didn't do, but we are doing like in a current episode that's coming up. So it's kind of weird, but yeah. And
but that's kind of the nice part about having ones that are like you said, that are improv. They're slightly planned, but you don't know how they're going to turn out. And when you have a podcast as diverse as what yours are, it's kind of nice where you can say, okay, that didn't fit with this season, but it could fit with this season instead.
A couple of favorite things that we do of mine is that, or of our podcast, is that whenever we talk to real live people, it's my favorite thing in the world. Like we went to Walgreens, W for Walgreens in season 1, and Tony gave me a scavenger hunt of like items to locate in the store. And I could ask an associate, look in the ad, or ask a customer. and sometimes the customers would talk to me and help me out. And those are the like, because you don't know what's going to happen. Those are the funnest reactions of the world. And they're so great. There's one that happens in this season that's so great that basically what I was talking about before about the idea is that we leap into a show called X Marks the Pod. This is actually an upcoming episode of season 3 for you. And Tony plays a character that I'm in the car, and I really am in the car, and he gives me directions like turn left. Okay, the next left you can take, turn left. Turn right at the second stop light or whatever, and then find a place, and then go in there and interview people. And we did it, and I end up at a bar, which is tremendous. A bar on a Sunday full of like all these like 50-year-old people who don't know what the hell I'm doing, and they're like,
that sounds like Impractical Jokers.
Oh, it's so weird and so crazy, but you know, and that's just one of the things that we do. We also we try to prank our really good friend Brent a lot. I don't know if you've heard the Brent episodes at all.
Don't know.
I think that I think I listened to one with Frank because that sounds familiar.
Yeah, there was one in season 1 called C is for Crunch, where basically we got all these crunching foods, and every time we were going to interview him, we told him it was I for interview, but every time he spoke, we just started crunching on the food until he got annoyed by it. And he's like, what's going on? And we're like, it's actually C for crunch.
But we're your audacity to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he comes back a lot. We like to prank him a lot, so he comes back a lot for that.
That's
he likes
awesome.
the abuse.
He is our punching bag. So
I love that idea though. I love the idea of just that's fucking again, he has to have a good spirit about it as well, because you know, he could definitely go the other way, you know, where he's not happy, like what the fuck, you know.
He kind of does. So season 1 episode we actually decided that we were going to send him stuff in the mail. So we send him like brochures for like Hair Club for Men, and we send him like God, what is that Suzanne Summers thing,
the Thigh Master, and an earwax removal kit, right?
Nice. So he gets it in the mail, but I pretended like it was him that ordered it. Well, you have to listen to the episode because Brent, he thinks that someone got into his credit card, and so the joke kind of backfired. But the whole backfire of the joke episode actually made it even funnier. And so you have to listen to it. So actually,
I'm actually adding that onto my list right now, where I'm like, I've got to go back and listen to that because that sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I love your podcast and all
you.
of your funny ideas.
Thank you so much.
That's fucking amazing.
We basically are kind of we just get bored by doing the same thing over and over again, so we just kind of.
That's definition of insanity, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Expecting a different result every time.
Yeah. Oh my God, and I love you guys too. I mean,
we
talk
do
a lot
okay for a couple of ladies.
No, but here's the thing with you guys: it's a fresh voice and it's a fresh like look at things, and it's so wonderful and so honest.
And sometimes so drunk, depending on what kind of day Miles is.
Well, Miles is usually drunk and I'm usually stoned, so I'm always excited when we make it to the end of an episode. Like, I think we did it.
We're not even sure. Sometimes, too, we try really hard to not be angry. You know, like we are like, let's just talk about normal, everyday shit, you know? And then by the end of it,
there's so many podcasts out there that it's hard to compete, you know, to have a fresh take or like you're talking about the true crime oh my gosh, true crime podcasts. They're everywhere. That's the big thing right now. And so everybody wants to listen to true crime, and I'm like, but I've got a great podcast you can listen to.
We do have an interesting thing that I want to try. Hopefully we can do it, but We are going to do a parody of a true crime podcast for season 3, of course.
Oh, with the background music and everything.
Oh yeah, and basically it's because the podcast Serial.
Yes.
Well, it's going to be cereal, but spelled like the food that you eat, cereal. And so someone steals Tony B's cereal, and we have to figure out who it is.
And he's done it several times.
Yes, and someone's done it 7 times.
Stupid.
I don't know if we're going to do that. That's like one of those things I want to do, so hopefully we'll get to
You can be like, it started off, I thought, I was just going through it or whatever, but this has happened like 4 or 5 times now. We're for sure that someone is stealing the cereal.
No, we've name dropped you guys as a
Dude, I
thing
love that episode where you guys have
podcast.
said her name like 1,000 times in the episode. I was dying. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm like, Crawford, if you have it, you've got to listen to this one.
I
It's
did.
so
It was so funny.
we had, and I think that too, that episode with our name, and it honestly came at such a time where I think even Crawford and I were like, life was just shit for us for a minute.
Right? And then a podcast came along and made our day.
It's so true. And I think that's one of those things that's what people are lacking. Everybody's so angry.
Yes.
They know that Miles and I, Crawford and I,
It's the Miles and Miles Variety Hour.
that we sometimes contribute to that anger,
Yeah.
but I think that we also are, I'm not saying we're part of the problem because I feel like we're more the funnier part of the problem.
Yeah, no, you guys are. Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, when you're talking about true crime and like political podcasts are very big because of what people are feeling out of that. You know what I'm saying?
I totally get it. Like, if you listen to our shows, we do not talk about politics at all. And when we do, it's something that if we ever do, it's something that we're skewing or making fun of.
Right.
But there's no, I think I've said the word Trump once, like just just joking. But
That's
we do. It's
smart.
It's not that kind of podcast. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's nice because then it's an escape.
It's an escape.
People
It's like
can get
it's
away
getting
from.
away from it. Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Crawford. That's what I was getting into. I'm like, I know, I'm trying to get it out there. That's what it is. We're also angry, so fucking don't be angry and listen to the ABCDBagz.
We try to balance it though, like we'll do
Yeah.
serious and then we'll try and have a fun episode where we're not ranting about the injustices of the world.
Tacos. We gotta talk about tacos.
Oh my god, I was listening
Time
to
traveling tacos.
I was catching
we
up
love
with you
tacos.
guys, and you guys were talking about tacos, and I was like, why do they keep talking about tacos?
We love them.
Tuesday, and I want tacos now.
It's Taco Tuesday.
And like you were giving
It is Taco
information,
Tuesday.
it was about Taco Bell, and I was like, this is wonderful.
I love tacos.
I love tacos. Tacos are good. It reminded me of but when you were giving information, I think Miles, you were giving information
Yes.
about Taco Bell, which was wonderful. But like in season 1 of our show, I would try to do where it was kind of like X's for xylophone, and I would tell like a little bit of information about the xylophone. But after a while, I was like, fuck that. No, let's just get into the show. We literally hit xylophones for 10 minutes, and that was our show.
And that's what people have to enjoy, though. And I think that for people who are looking for a way to lighten the fuck up, and I think that's in my opinion, what people need right now. I mean, as much as I rant and I rave, it's because everybody is so mad, but we're so fucking lazy about being mad.
Yeah,
So we just stay mad. And it's like, okay, if we're going to be this fucking lazy about being bad people, then lighten the fuck up and take a joke then.
If you can take a dick, you can take a joke.
Here you go.
I like to say that to people who don't take dick.
Do you have that on a t-shirt too? Get that on a
You
t-shirt.
know who originally said that to me was my brother, who had been in prison for 10 years altogether. And it was after he got out, and I got I don't know, he was my brother, so he pissed me off. He said something mean.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever, fuck you. And he was like, you know what? If you can take a dick, you can take a joke. And I automatically was like, well, we know where you stand on that, huh? And he didn't talk to me for about a year after that. I don't fucking care.
Our name came from, I think our name came from, honestly, my husband. I think we were like ABC something. And he said, what about D-Bag? I think it was like a-holes, and then we came up with D-Bags, and the D-Bag thing stuck. And so that's how we got ABCDBagz. And then
I think D-Bags works really well because I wasn't, because if people don't understand, that there has to be a sense of, like, to me, it makes people who've never listened to yours understand that you're not taking yourselves that seriously.
Yeah, there's like, we never want to hurt anyone in our podcast. Like, we don't want to be cynical. And if you've listened to it, I don't think we ever come off cynical or like crazy like that. I think
No.
You know what I mean? And I agree with you what you said about that. That's I never thought of it like that. But that's amazing.
Because that's a lot. I mean, for people who are listening to podcasts, or what I'm trying to get people to listen to podcasts, it's always a fucking thing because, if it's not their serious, maybe it is a fucking like self-help or whatever it is they need for their day. But, when you're trying to say like, okay, expand your mind on what you're listening to, but it's when you're looking at titles and you're going down the list between, Podbean and Spreaker and iTunes and all that shit that's out there. Most of the time, a lot of the podcasts, for the most part, keep pretty true to their name, in my opinion. And you can tell how serious or not serious a podcast you're walking into.
Yes.
By just sometimes mostly their first picture and like the title of their podcast. And that will kind of sell you on what the hell is this about? Yeah. And like, and so to be the ABCDBagz, like, D-Bags, like either it's going to be one of two things. Two people not taking themselves very serious, or just a group not taking themselves very seriously, or these guys who probably really are douchebags and they're just proud of being douchebags. So you hit play because you want to find out, are they fucking douchebags or are they fucking hilarious? And it is fucking hilarious.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us. I mean, and like, honestly, when we started editing, like, my husband does all the editing. God bless him, because there was this episode.
Crawford, we need to marry an editor. I mean, I'm married to a dumbass, so your man has to learn how to edit.
I think we do great. No, he would take forever and never get around to it.
We did this episode called Visible Vulgarity, and so basically what we did was we had one of my friends from college, her daughter, whenever we cuss, we found out that on our podcast that she has to leave the room for some reason. And so we had, like, my husband recorded her doing like mild cuss words or like parodies of cuss words that you hear like when someone edits something, like forkin or whatever, like on The Good Place. Have you ever seen that show, The Good Place?
Yeah, just when people dub over in movies too.
And so
sometimes I even get the original actors to do that.
Yes. So we had her record a bunch of things, and then we just did our own show. And he later went in and edited all the times that we cussed into one of the things that she said. So it would be like spoon, fork, whatever. And it took him like 2 hours. I don't know how he did it, but like after that, he was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But he does, and he knocks it out of the park every time. I actually was talking to Miles before you came on, Crawford, about how our recording schedule is. We actually, because our episodes are about 20-30 minutes long, that we record at least 2 or 3 episodes every time that we record. So I haven't.
Isn't it genius?
I haven't recorded with Tony. Like, I haven't recorded with him for a month, and we have at least 3 episodes in the can that we can release.
We've done that. We did that like once. We recorded. I think that was when we were still recording in Miles' her garage.
Season 1, technically. Yeah, a year ago.
I think that we did that once. We did one, and I think we automatically rolled it. I think it was our July 4th episode. But I remember we did that once, and we should probably do that more often. We are terrible. I was telling
him, like, that's
we're
so
like,
great.
Fuck, we're here at all, okay?
He was saying with the holidays and, his other half doing a Christmas show and all that kind of stuff, they're really busy. And I'm like, God, like, because me and Crawford, like, we're going to
go get her too.
I know. We need to fucking make this happen, Crawford.
We're going to eventually, slowly. Okay.
We actually say that because when I do my other podcast with my husband, The Deuce, I do that with my husband, but then I say I do ABCDBagz with my comedy husband, Tony. That's actually what we say.
Comedy husband.
Which is funny.
I like it.
Because Tony's straight. As a, but we just say comedy husband. He's like, yeah, I don't care.
I get it. He's your comedy husband.
Yeah.
But Miles is my comedy wife.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
very
We
true.
run a business together.
Yeah,
It's a
we run a
podcast.
business. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because, my boyfriend, he's always, I don't know, he doesn't take our podcast seriously. I don't know how Mr. Miles is.
Oh,
But
he does not take us seriously. And
They
if he
think-
does, he doesn't listen
They don't
to us
listen
because
to
he
us.
listens to me too much at home as it is.
yeah, look, they don't listen to our podcast, and they don't take us very
I love
seriously.
that you call them Mr. Miles.
Well, that's what he
like,
is.
like he's a spokesperson for some products.
Do you have to meet my husband to understand that could actually maybe fit him?
One time, you know what? He's really cute though, because like when we first started doing the podcast, do you remember that one time where he sat down with us and you could tell that he wanted to be on the podcast? Like he didn't leave, and finally Miles was like, "Can you go so we can start recording?" But you could tell we were talking about something. I mean, we were engaged in a really great conversation, and she was like, Okay, you're killing us. This is all great stuff that we could put on the podcast. So could you go? And you could kind of tell like the shoulders went down a little bit.
That's funny.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of a dicky wife. I can't.
You're kind of a dicky husband, though. That's why they work so well.
It's actually very true because we were discussing. My sister wasn't not the one that had just recuperated, but my middle sister was in town this last week, and we were talking about how terrible my kids can be. And then, after me and her were discussing it, she's listening in to me and Mr. Miles having our, end of the day conversation. And she's like, you guys are fucking assholes. Like to each, like we and him just, we're such dicks and sarcastic to each other on, it's normal, but when you hear your voice coming out of like a sassy 11 or 9-year-old, you're like, where the hell did you learn to talk to me that way? And what the fuck, Andy? Like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, they learned from watching you, Mom. Like it's.
That's what my boyfriend says that to me every other day. You know
Okay,
what?
Like,
he's not like your boyfriend though. Like, let's get that straight. Y'all have been together for as long as me and Mr. Miles have been together.
Since the last century, okay? So,
Like, have you ever thought about doing not that, because this is a great podcast. I love you guys' podcast, but you ever thought about doing like another podcast with your husband, Miles?
yeah, I have my
Crawford
boyfriend-
has this podcast going on with her man for how long now?
Oh,
Right
do you
now,
really?
about this, a couple months after I started this with Miles, like he's just not a project starter, and he wanted to do his cartoon and all this other stuff, and then I just started doing this podcast with Miles. We met up and we actually made it a thing, and I started being like, no, I got to go to Finland. We're going to record. And then he saw that it was actually a thing. So then he got all excited, and we were supposed to do a podcast together. And I was like, well, I don't really. And that was like forever ago. And then he did do a podcast. He wanted to do his own because when Miles was gone, when her sister was sick, I had him on, and I had my friend Sean on while she was gone so we could put out a couple shows. And then after he was on the show, he got all excited, kind of got invigorated about it. And he had his friend over, and they recorded an episode, and that was 4 months ago. I think he edited it last week a little bit.
So he likes to start projects, and my husband is like, he would be down for it for like probably an episode or two, but to stick through it.
I don't realize how much work goes into a podcast. You know what I mean? Like, if it weren't for Miles, this shit would have gone down in flames because she does all the networking, and that's how we've connected with so many other podcasters. But when we started, I did the editing, and most of the time she does the editing now. So she actually does the bulk of the work, where before, when she didn't know how to edit and stuff, but she took it right on. Everything that we've done, she didn't know anything about. I'd show her what I knew, and she would just fly with it. So she just teaches herself everything,
Nice.
But they don't realize how much work goes into podcasting. It's not just recording and editing, it's pushing the episodes and networking with other people, and there's just so much that goes into it, and it's just constant. You have to constantly keep out there, otherwise
do you hear that, Mr.
away.
Miles? Do you hear that, Mr. Miles? Do you hear that, Duke Crawford and Mr. Miles? Mr. Miles?
Mr. Crawford has escaped the house to buy me coffee for tomorrow morning.
You guys, like in that episode I listened to you guys this morning, you guys said the word dude, and my husband said that to me once, and I said, dude's such a straight word.
It is. That's what breeders call each other, so if you could not, that would be really great.
Such a straight word. I was like, don't call me that, please.
My friend Sean, I said before we started recording, he was my guest on the show, and he's gay. And he calls us breeders. Anybody that's straight, he's like, fucking breeders.
Yeah, I used to. But then,
It makes me laugh. I love it. I'm like, I know, I'm a breeder. I was just
we used to yell at, like when in my 20s, in my angry gay days, we used to, yell, breeders.
Yeah, he just does it as like sarcasm now. You know what I mean? He's an older gay man. I call him vintage gay. You're vintage gay now, Sean.
You're vintage gay.
Yeah, his heyday was the 90s. You know what I mean?
He had Ellen and everyone coming out.
He's always like telling the younger gay people, like, you don't know what it's like to stand in line outside a gay club and get shot at. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, appreciate your, I'm not
that shit
at all saying that did not happen, but I just laugh. You know what I mean? I'm like, you don't know what it's like to walk 5 miles in the snow to school. And I'm like, I'm not downing what gay people did back to get to where we are today, but it's just the way that he says it.
It's kind of weird here because I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and there's a gay club called the Max. And it's one of the best. Like, it's so beautiful and nice inside. It's so great. But on the weekends, all the straight people go to the Max because it's the only place where they can dance. Well, what happened was like some gay brought their hag to the Max, and then the hag brought all of her friends to the Max, and then the guys were like, "Where are the girls at?" Then they realized they were all there, so they all go to the Max. And then that pushes us all out. There's, it should be a safe place for everyone, but, so I kind of avoid that during the weekend. But,
No, that's kind of like, for us, there's a town called Bowling Green, and they had, for the longest time, speaking of like the 90s and that kind of era going into the early 2000s, is that they had, it's still there, it's called Uptown Downtown. And Uptown Downtown was where, they had the gay nights, and for a lot of the
story about that after you're done.
Oh, no, I was just talking about Uptown. You tell me your story.
You go ahead. Continue. I was like, oh my God, I have a story about that. Go ahead.
Do you have a story of the uptown or the downtown part?
The uptown on Tuesdays, I think it is drag night, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so in Uptown Downtown, it's a 2-level bar. Like, you can either go uptown and you're upstairs, or downtown, you're downstairs. That's why it's called Uptown Downtown. And on Tuesday nights, it's drag night. And so there's nothing but drag queens wandering around in full drag, and they perform. Actually, I haven't been there in 15 years, probably 10 years. It's been a long time because it's really far from where I'm at now. But I will never forget drag night because they had like these plastic chairs that were all like not glued, but welded together, like those type.
Yeah.
And a table. And so I'm sitting in this chair drinking, and you ever notice something out of the corner of your eye, but you're too scared to like look right at it? You just like slowly, you're like, there's.
Yeah, they're called boobs for me, but yes.
I love. You know what? It reminds me of when I first became friends with Sean. I was talking to him, and I love wearing low cut shirts, so my cleavage is always about to make some gay man puke. But, and in the middle of me talking, he took his index finger and just stuck it down in my cleavage, kind of wiggled around, pulled it out, and he was like, So that's what that's like. That's weird. And so and we just continued to talk. So and I was like, okay. So anyways, I'm at Uptown Downtown, and like out of the corner of my eye, I see something. So I like turn. And there's this full-on ass in my face wearing a thong, okay? So it's like bare butt cheeks, just, almost brushing the hair on my face, like that. Where I'm starting to like raise up because it was like there's an ass very close to you. Like my body alarm was going off. You know? Like ass to face. But every time I think of Uptown, Downtown, and Drag Night or whatever else, that's all I can think of is looking, and it was just nothing but butt in my face.
No, was it
See,
hairy?
I love
just
going there.
wanna know,
I
was
felt
it-
like it was
No, it was a very nice butt.
Okay.
I mean, I would have reached out and touched it if that were not inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like, the drag queen probably didn't want a woman to squeeze it, but, you know, I really was like, that's a plump butt. But still, it's just the fact that butt crack was mere inches from my nose. You know? I'm just like, because I turned...
Crack is whack.
Crack is whack, bro.
Now,
dude.
As far as the gay community is concerned, I'm a bear. And so,
okay.
And so pretty much what I wear and what a lesbian wear are pretty much the same thing. Flannel. Anyway.
You a lumberjack. You know, I live in a very small town, and they still call people who are gay fairies, queers, all kinds of derogative terms. And so I will joke around and I'll be like, you know, if you were gay, you'd be an otter. And they're like, what? And I'm like, look it up, buddy.
Look it up.
Look it up.
Look it up.
You little cub, you. You know? And they never get it. They have no idea. I'm like, you are totally an otter.
I am like entering my daddy bear status right now.
There you go.
I am. I'm turning 40 next year, and I'm okay with it.
That's
and,
good.
And that's the way it is.
I love all the little categories. Like, what kind of gay are you?
All the little categories, like otter, like, you know, bear.
Otter makes me giggle. I'm just like, you're an otter.
Whatever. There's of course the very racist panda bear, which is cool.
Panda bear.
Which is,
First of all, what's wrong with the fucking pandas, okay? What is wrong with the pandas?
It's because they're calling an Asian bear a panda bear.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Panda bear.
That
something
is actually very racist and yet very hilarious.
Yeah, at the same time, which is great. But
Yes.
like, and then there's
I thought it was a mulatto.
There's like a pocket bear,
That's not nice. We're gonna edit that out.
like a pocket bear, which is like a really short bear that you can put in your pocket. Like, I think a midget bear. I think that's what they're talking about, but I don't know if that's what they mean by that. But like, that's what they have. But.
Oh my god!
But I'll tell you what. If back to the podcast, because we weren't even talking about that for 2 minutes.
We're not.
It's the variety hour.
This is how you get
I'm
to
going
like
to
when he's
tell
like,
you,
hey, you're
like,
gonna.
if there's any reason to listen to our podcast, our ABCDBagz, it's for Tony B's laugh.
Oh, so good.
It is the best laugh you will ever hear on a podcast, bar none.
I would have to agree.
I
would
will
definitely have to agree.
totally vouch for anyone. I vouch for him, and I tell you to bring it on, because that man's laugh is the greatest.
What you should do is that when you send over your bit, your side of recording of this, send us a snippet as well of his laugh.
Oh God!
And even if anything, we'll just end it out that way. Like, and the whole entire episode just ends in his laugh, and I'm okay with that.
That's the sign off.
That's how it's sign off. Like, not even goodbye. Like, hey, everybody good, and then just laughing, and then it ends. And that's all.
Half the time, I'm just trying to make him laugh, just because I want to hear that. And I want to waste up, time, because we're ripping up paper for 15 minutes. I gotta make it last, so I just want to make him laugh about 5 minutes of that.
Well, it's funny because even when you were like, so you're
Put
gonna
it on a
interview me
loop.
for like 10 minutes, I'm like, dude, me and Crawford we have an open style interview process where you can say, okay, I'm gonna be on there for like 10, 15 minutes, and now we're rolling into 45 minutes.
Yeah,
That's how we do.
That's how it works. It's about 40 minutes now, and that's about 2 episodes of ABCDBagz right there.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it is. So yeah, there you go.
We try to make it to the hour mark, and sometimes we go way over it.
And sometimes we've cut it short a few times, but we usually hit up that time, and then that way it wraps up. But we will. I know that me and him were, we've been talking obviously prior because somebody was late.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Must have been you.
Why don't you
no more
let us...
wire hangers.
You're such a Joan Crawford.
I am a Joan Crawford.
why don't you tell us everywhere that anybody can find your podcast?
Oh
Yes.
my God, you can find it just like anywhere where you find podcasts, Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, all your normal podcasts. Catchers.
Do you have a website? You don't have a website, do you?
No, we don't really. It's just ABCDBagz, Podbean. We don't really have a website. We need to get on that, but we're lazy when it comes to that.
That's okay. I
What's
haven't
your
updated
Twitter
ours in like
handle?
6 months.
Our
You're
Twitter
fine.
handle is the real ABCDBagz, as opposed to the fake ones that
Yeah.
are out there that are ruining our names.
They're horrible knockoffs. Don't even have the color right.
There was an episode where
This is
Tony
obviously salmon.
and I drink soup on the planet of the roller skating bees, and we turn into the XYZ a-holes. And it's very like, what up, bro?
How you doing, bro?
It very much is like that. Yeah.
I'm really glad that we had a gay gentleman on and that we're talking about it. My friend told me that you can, like, when you first talk, like, on dating sites and whatnot, when I noticed that when he would talk to other men, he would use words like man or bro. And he was like, that's kind of how we talk to each other to determine what kind of gay you're dealing with. Because,
Sure.
he calls himself like a straight gay. He's like, so he'll call people man, and then he knows that he's dealing with like a real queen or whatever. And they're like, please don't call me man,
Yeah.
So, but that cracked me up. I was like, I did not know that there were like code words or.
I didn't know that dude was a straight thing until now, so I've been informed.
I don't think it is. I just kind of that was just the joke that I was saying.
No,
I
you're
don't know.
Probably very right though. Like that's just like there's probably all kinds of stuff that I'm fucking saying that's just a total fucking straight girl thing.
Yeah.
Shit. That's okay.
Well,
I'm
we
alright
are
with
what
it.
we are, Miles, so that's okay.
It's just one of those, like, I have like 3 jokes that I tell over and over again, and one of them is I hate acronyms. I think they're BS.
I love it. I love that joke.
Kills
I'm
every
gonna borrow
time.
it. Yes, only if people get it.
Yeah. Only if people get it. And there's another one like someone was like, I'm a Catholic, what do you practice? And I said basketball.
Wait, what?
They're like, I'm a Methodist or I'm a Catholic. What do you practice? And I just say basketball. That's all I say.
Practice, What do you practice? Get it,
Now I
Miles?
get it. Now I get it. Miles, get your shit together.
That
My
one's not-
favorite.
Have you noticed that one's not as good as the first one? Anyway.
My favorite is you look really familiar. I get that all like constantly since I was a teenager. You look like a girl I know. I look like a girl named Amanda, and oh my gosh, is it you, Miles?
Oh my
No,
God.
we don't look like, but people always tell me like, you remind me. I think I know you. I think I've seen you somewhere or whatever. And so what I started telling people, I used to do animal porn.
Oh, that was you.
Maybe it teaches them a lesson to shut the fuck up and stop saying that. I'm unique.
That was you.
I don't remind you of anybody.
That was you last night. Anyway, so, but when you said that reminded me, like, in my 20s, my rebel days, we used to play this game called
You had an
Cheryl.
earring.
Yeah, Cheryl. We used to play a game called Cheryl, which basically would just be me and my friends, and we would point to a girl and go, Cheryl! Cheryl! And then we would go, like, we wouldn't even know her. And then she'd go, my name's not Cheryl. I'd be like, oh my God, I feel so embarrassed. You just look exactly like Cheryl. And we just would do that over and over again until they would just get annoyed by it.
That's why I started with the whole animal porn thing.
But it's really fun. Yeah. The
It was
animal
probably because
porn.
you and your friends. I used to do animal porn. That's how you know me. Hopefully it teaches them a lesson.
Yeah. I don't know
Telling
what
people
lesson.
you live somewhere when you don't. That's
Stay
dumb.
in school, kids. That's the lesson.
Stay in school. You could be like us.
Learn your ABCs. Drop out of school and let me teach you ABCs.
Yes.
So,
We need way more of that, in my opinion.
thank you so much for letting me be on your show. I really appreciate it. And thanks
I
for-
had a good time personally.
I had a terrible time. Fuck up. I never even laughed.
I hope I
once.
was just offensive enough.
I think you were fine. I think the animal porn was good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've seen me. I could tell you weren't surprised at all.
No,
So
I wasn't surprised. No, I
you know
wasn't-
my work.
I wasn't surprised, and neither was that badger.
You know what? He wanted it. You see the way that fucker walked on camera what he was wearing?
Oh my God! Stop it! Stop it! All right. Hey,
That's
thank
weird.
you so much for coming. Keep it in line, Miles. Playing the mom chart. No, thank you for coming on our podcast. I know we've definitely been behind. We've been talking about getting together for quite some time now, so I'm super pumped to have had you on, Brad. This has been. Now, do you prefer Brad or Bradley? That's the other question.
Gus.
Gus? Gus it is.
He's a grumpy Gus.
No, but I actually that's a joke I say too. Like people ask me that all the time. Do you prefer Brad or Bradley? And I say Gus.
Gus.
I know a woman that goes. That's her nickname. She goes by Gus. She's not a lesbian. She
isn't,
Gus.
or she is?
She's not a lesbian.
She's not like.
She doesn't.
I identify as a Gus.
Does she backpack? I'm a lesbian. I backpack and drink Pabst Blue Ribbon. Okay, I don't want to
PBR. I got my
PBR.
koozie.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, okay.
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 All right.
Okay.
Bradley, we're going to let you go. We're going to
okay.
stay on and kind of finish up and wrap up the episode.
Good.
But
I'm glad you're letting me go. I have this
Yeah,
video.
let-
I was sleeping anyway.
I have this video. I need to finish this video that I've been watching.
send us your stuff via email and send it straight to whatever is easiest, and send us that clip of laughter, and we will make this happen. I'm not promising in days, but I'm hoping in the next few days we'll have this posted.
Whenever. Don't worry about it. It could be 5 years from now. It's fine. You
No.
know?
It will happen. We need to put an episode out anyway, so we have to get this going.
One more thing before I do go, like the way that like Tony and I work is that it's not that we don't want listeners, we do want listeners, but
You just want ones that you like.
it's
and
just
like
ones that
you.
we like, and we also like go by the philosophy of 9 people's favorite thing. 9 people's favorite thing. I would rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing.
Yes.
Which is from a musical called Title of Show, which I live by that philosophy every day. Like, you don't need to be the number one for everything. You just need to have, like, some people go, hey, this is amazing. Go listen to this. Instead of, like, all these people that are like, I'll get to that show. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's a really good philosophy to have. I like it.
Yeah.
I
And
think so, too.
once you kind of live like that, you're just kind of like, whatever.
Whatever. We'll get it out. Things will happen. They work or they won't. But we're all having fun while we're doing this. I think that's the best part is that, all 3 of us are having a great time doing it.
I don't really, until it's not fun anymore. And we'd like to make money and be our main thing. But for me, it's an outlet. You know, I don't get out a whole lot. And I live a half hour from Miles. So it's a way to connect with her. And I have fun, and I'm proud of it. And it's a release. And so I don't really care if we only have so many listens per episode. People are listening. And like you said, I'd rather have a smaller crowd that likes me number 1 than a big crowd that likes me like 10th on their list.
Yeah, right? Like, why would you? I don't want that. That's just.
I've always been like those friends. I only need a
Words
couple
of
of good
wisdom,
friends. I don't
man.
need a bunch.
Yeah.
Such a wise man.
Thank you so much. Miles.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley. We'll talk to you soon.
I'll do another shout out for you guys. Somehow I'll get it in there. And if you guys ever want to try to be on our podcast, we'll
I
try to
fucking
figure
would love
out
to.
how to get you on there.
Crawford would probably be a lot better at that than I would, but yes.
Oh my gosh, I would love it.
We found out that we do have a lot of potheads that love us. I don't know why.
Well, we have a weird sense of humor. It's been molded by pot. You know what I mean?
And I don't do any of that, but I don't, say you shouldn't. You should.
Right.
If that enhances our podcast, then sure. It's fine.
Right. It's good.
So thank you so much again.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
All right, we done?
Yeah.
I think so. That was a fun episode. I had good times.
So what do you got for the week? I mean, do you want to end our
Oh, I really don't. This has been my busy week for me. I have been traveling a lot back and forth, up an hour north and back, and I've been listening to some podcasts. I can't really. I put them all on a list and just do random play. So I have listened to more podcasts in the last month than I have in probably the last year. You know what I?
Yeah.
awesome.
And when we were on Twitter and you had named off a bunch, I had 4 of those on my list that I listen to, and I think I listen to Brave Girls. I listened to their latest episode, I believe it was 2 days ago, perhaps. I like them. Two Girls on a Bench. I've been catching up on their podcasts. Of course,
That's
BS3.
hilarious.
I love Ben. And gosh, dumb all over. Of course, I've listened to. I think in the last month, I've listened to every episode that they've put out. Just because, and I did watch their live stream on. I think we talked about that last time. We watched their live stream for the elections. Yep. Well, we were on their show, and so I've been avid fan. Can't even say it right. I've been a big old fan of theirs ever since. Like, I listened to them before, but being on their show, I was like, God, I love these guys. So now I'm gonna put ABC on my list. I've listened to probably 6 of their episodes, probably the most recent. But I'm gonna go back and listen to like older ones. Cause I knew like 4 or 5 of your references, but there were a couple where I was like, I don't think I heard that episode. And that sounds amazing.
Well, and that's what I was telling him is that with my new job in the last month, I probably listened to the least amount of podcasts because my new job, I don't have as much availability to listen to podcasts like I did at my prior job. So now I'm kind of like, okay, it's time for me to catch up, which is what I'm kind of actually looking forward to that Christmas, New Year's break is to really catching up, you know, with everybody else from the No Phony Podcast Network that I haven't really been able to catch up on. Which would be really great. And then, of course, some of the other, you know, fan faves, as always, with, like, Drinks with Larry and Married AFs. Those ones I haven't. I mean, I feel terrible because I love them. I'm like, you guys are on my list.
The
I just need to, like...
Yeah,
and the Facklers. We love the Facklers. We love you.
Love you.
Oh, yeah, and I got to catch up on Waffle, WAFL Productions. They've, I know... I haven't listened to their most recent. I did listen to everything else prior. But again... I'm not sure if it goes into our background, but every episode we'll give him a nice little shout out because Marcos did such a great job in that hour-long loop. I think it sounded really nice,
did too.
Right? The last episode.
Yep, I'm very proud of it, and I really appreciate that he did that for us.
Yeah, they're really doing some great stuff, and so that's so.
People are so great. That's just. I love it.
I know, and our Twitter fam in general, like Twitter fam, we know we've been kind of quiet. I know that I've been really lacking in the social department. That is one of my goals for this coming month of December is to
we go in
turn
cycles.
Back on Twitter notifications
we really do.
And like go back and being like, got it, I got this.
We go in cycles. We really do because sometimes we're on Twitter all day, every day, and then we're crickets for a week, and then. But I had to take it off my phone, so I only get on my computer when I'm on and get on Twitter. But anyways, I'm just rambling on at this point. So
that is A-okay, and
we really appreciate everybody that tunes in and hangs on because I know that our posting schedule is always a little off, but we really appreciate that people tune in, and you can always find us on your favorite streaming app. We're active on Twitter the most when it comes to, like, if you want to reach us directly, MC Variety Hour. That's our handle, right? Yeah. I had to make sure. I'm like, but that's the best way to reach us directly.
It's been kind of hellacious, but we're going to make this work. We're going to get back on track-ish, maybe. We'll see. But we're going to try. We will try at some point. Definitely, the holiday seasons bear with us, but we definitely appreciate, Bradley from the ABCDBagz coming on. Can't wait to get this episode posted. I know he already sent us his snippet, so you can send me yours and we'll get to editing.
Okay.
And I hope that everybody's Thanksgiving was fantastic. And our next episode is going to be out at some point talking about something. It might be with Rachel. It might be between then. I don't know.
We'll
see
what happens. Punks.
Yeah, exactly. Until then, we love
do.
you guys.
To the moon and back. Thanks for tuning in as always.